everyone, my name is Phil and welcome to Phil Does 3D. I'm a multimedia and 3D artist and I stream on Twitch weekdays from 5 PM Pacific time in the US, 12 PM in Australia and 1 AM in the UK. I want to shout out a thank you to Soft, Catalytic and Fluent Design for following my Twitch channel yesterday. Thank you guys, I do appreciate it when you follow me on Twitch, so thank you. What we're doing today is we're going to be setting up the materials in Eon View for the model we've been working on in 3D Studio Max. So up until now we've been creating this model, texturing it up and exporting it to get it ready for 3D Studio Max, to get it ready for Eon View, my apologies. Today we're going to be setting up the materials in Eon View so that we can start creating a full-on 3D environment for it. Good evening, Sniper Echo. Good to see you. You haven't missed anything. All I'm showing you now is this model that I've imported into Eon View version 9. Now, it's going to explain a few things here. Version 9 I'm using because I sell the model online. I want people that have older versions of View to be able to use the model. If I jump straight into 2015, the latest version of View, actually 2016 is the latest version, but I'm using 2015. Only people that use 2015 version would be able to use the model. And I know a lot of people on Cornucopia that do purchase my models use older versions of View, all the way back to version 6 in a lot of cases, but I'm making it so it's version 9 and up, so it'll be version 9, version 10, version 11, version 2014, 2015 and 2016. That'll be able to load this model if they wanted to buy it. The reason I'm starting with version 9 and not going back to version 6 is because starting with version 9 they introduced normal maps and I want to put normal maps on the model, so that's the reason it's in version 9 at the moment that you see here. I'm only using version 9 to set up the materials and export the VOB, which is the format that View uses for its models. After I've exported it, I will open up View 2015 and we'll do the environment in that program. And a word of warning too, this program, version 9, because it's so old, it's like 5 or 6 versions ago, is incredibly buggy. It's incredibly slow, and if you thought Max was buggy and bad, wait, just try using Eon View 9, it's not good. But like I said, I need to do it in version 9 just for the sake of compatibility for people. So we're only going to be using version 9 though to create the materials for it and to export the actual model. Once the model's exported, we'll be jumping into 2015. And 2015 is the latest version. If you download the PLE, which is the Personal Learning Edition of View, which is free on their website, I don't think they've put 2016 up yet for download, so you'll be downloading 2015, which is the same version I'm going to be using. I'm not using the Personal Learning Edition, I'm using Infinite or Extreme, but the interface is exactly the same. It's the same program. The PLE just has a few restrictions, and I think one of them is you can't render out higher than HD, which is 1920 by 1080. That should be big enough for most people anyway though. And like I said, it's completely free. You can download it from their website. I think you might have to create an account with them to download it though. It's the only downside to getting the program. But it's free to set up an account with them. It's easy. They just need your email address. So what I've done here is I've taken that model, pardon me, that we created in 3D Studio Max, and I have imported it into Eon View. So the only thing you've missed is me going File, Import Object. That's all I've done. And after a while it will bring your model in as you see it just here, ready for you to use. But like I said, this is version 9. I'll jump into version 2015. The interface is pretty much the same. They made a few small changes here and there, but so I won't be going into detail with this version of the program. This is only being used so that we can create our materials. So just so all that's clear. Let's see. And like I said, this version is really buggy. It has a tendency to crash all the time. So if you thought Max's crashing was bad, wait till you see this. And it does take an incredibly long time to save out a file. Again, it may be something to do with the Windows update that's changed the way programs like this save files, but I do know it takes a long time, so this file to save out would took a good 10 or 15 minutes. So anyway, I'm just a reminder to you guys, if you have any questions for me or anything you don't understand or you're not sure about, feel free to pop into chat and ask me. If you just want to pop into chat and say hi, that's always cool. I like chatting to you guys. If you just want to watch, that's completely fine as well. So what I wanted to do though is this model at the moment. Hey Montressier, good to see you. Thank you. Yes, our angel statue's here. We've just brought the model into view and we're going to start creating some materials for it in View's material editor. They call it the function editor, the node graph in View. But I did, when we exported this model, we were using target textures.tga, and I want to change them to .jpeg for the diffuse bitmaps. And that is just to save memory in Eon View, because when we start putting lots of plants and trees and grass and things in a scene, it's really going to start eating up the memory on your computer. View likes a lot of memory, and it's not unusual for it to get into the tens of billions of polygons in a scene. So that's just a warning for you guys that do use View. You really want to have at least 8 gigabytes of memory on your machine to be able to do anything useful. If you're just creating a very small scene, you might get away with 4, but the more the better. But in order to do that, we have to convert our textures that we created from Target to JPEG. And again, don't change the normal maps from Target. Leave them as TGA, the normal maps. Don't convert them to JPEG. You'll destroy the normal map otherwise. So I think what I was going to do it one of two ways. Either load up SAP. You rock 64 gig? Well, cool. You'll have no problem then, Montressier. I rock 32 gig. So 64 you'll be fine. And you can go completely nuts and go into the hundreds of billions of polygons. You shouldn't have a problem. I'm not saying you necessarily need that much memory to run View. You don't. Like I said, 8 gigabytes I'd say would be a good sweet spot. 4 gig at a minimum if you're using a very small scene. Even if you've got less memory than that, it'll just mean a View will slug a bit to show you the polygons because it's going to be hitting a hard drive. So. Yeah, 32 is not bad, but I'd like 64. I haven't upgraded my machine since the early days of my machine here is an i7 2600K, so the 2 series of Intel's processors, and they're up to the 7 series now, but I haven't seen a need because there's only been like a 10% increase in speed over the generations. So, and because of that, until I upgrade the machine, I'm not going to be upgrading the memory anymore on this machine because it uses DDR3 memory and the new one is DDR4. So when I upgrade the processor, I'll upgrade the memory and I'll probably go up to 64 then, but 32 works for me at the moment. I haven't come across any. I do a lot of video editing and stuff as well, and I've never run out of memory, put it that way. Generally I go up to about 20 gigabytes of memory and everything that I use. Even View generally when I'm doing scenes, I won't usually go above 22 gigs. So. You're rocking an i7 4930K? Yep, cool. Yeah, well, the 4 series, again, like I said, there's really been no need to upgrade past. I haven't found a need to upgrade past the 2 series, 2600K, because Intel are just trickling out the upgrade improvements over the cycle. So. Montressier says he bought the machine from a Uber PC enthusiast. Okay, cool. Must run games really well. Yeah, but like I said, if you're using an older processor, there's really not a lot of reason to upgrade because it's just not the speed improvement you're going to get for the money you're going to have to outlay. Because generally, if you're upgrading a machine from either a 2 series, a 3 series, I'm not sure if the 4 series uses DDR4 memory or not, Montressier. But if you had to upgrade the memory as well as the motherboard and the processor, you're looking at about $1,000. So Montressier says he likes how some people like souping up their cars to go over 200 miles per hour, but they can never drive that fast. And he likes to have his computers absurdly fast. Well, that's true. Of course, you can overclock your processor as well. I don't overclock mine because I found that you can run into a lot of problems if you start overclocking your machine, particularly if you're not doing it right or properly. I know a lot of you guys are into gaming, and I know a lot of you guys will overclock, and I'm not saying don't do it. I don't do it just because I've noticed that some programs can become really unstable with an overclocked CPU. Or GPU for that matter. I don't overclock either of them. But hey, do it if you want. And just be aware though, if your computer crashes or shuts down unexpectedly or something like that, it's generally the overclock that's doing it. That's what I've found over the years anyway. And that's why I just don't bother with it. You're only going to get like a 10 or 15% improvement in speed with an overclock anyway, and I just don't want the hassle, so I don't bother. Notch2 says he doesn't do it either. And like he says, there is no need these days. Hardware is fast enough, and that's why, like I say, I'm still using an i7-2600K, and it's completely fast enough for me. And I do a lot of CAD work, I do a lot of rendering work, modelling work, texturing work, and I've not had a problem. It's been fast enough. You're not going to gain anything by spending $1,000 to upgrade to the very latest processor from Intel. The only caveat I would put on that is if you're upgrading the number of cores. The more cores, the better if you're doing design work. That's the only other thing that I would say though. If you're just upgrading from a 4-core 8-thread to another 4-core 8-thread Intel processor, don't bother. But if you're going from like a 4-core to an 8-core, that's a different story. And I'm just waiting for Intel to release a processor range where they really up the cores before I upgrade. Stick with what you've got, it's good enough for the moment. Wait until Intel pull their finger out and release something worth buying, or upgrading to anyway. So if you've got anything again from the 2600, from the 2 series Intel processors right up, you're fine. Anything below that, then you should probably start upgrading. Now these textures, like I said, they're in Targa format at the moment, and I want them in JPEG format. I was going to use SAP Visual Enterprise to do that, but I won't do that because I don't want to encourage any of you guys to use that program. It's really not worth the money. Don't bother with it. Like I said, unless you're a CAD modeler or you do a lot of CAD work in ArchViz, there's really no point in having it. So showing you a program that I'm not recommending, it seems a bit silly. So I'm going to do it in Photoshop because I know a lot of you guys use Photoshop, and Photoshop will do the job, so we'll use Photoshop. Just take a bit longer, that's all. The only thing that SAP would do for me is to do it all automatically for me, but I can do it manually. This means you're going to watch me saving a lot of files out, but that's okay. It's not a huge list, it's probably about 80 textures, I think. Like I said, we're not doing anything to the normal maps, they're staying as Targa. All we're doing is converting the diffuse maps to JPEG. So we'll do that first. Once that's done, then we can jump back into view there and start setting up our materials. I've noticed Photoshop is opened here, but it hasn't popped up on my screen. It's a bit slow, and that'll be view. Like I said, this version 9 of view that I'm using here at the moment just to set up the textures is one of the buggiest pieces of software. But the environment will be rendering up in Eon View version 2015. That's the one you can download from their website. So let's start opening up our textures and doing our conversion. Okay, Garden Terrace Finals. These are the textures we're going to convert. I think I'll just do it in sections here. So some of them are already in JPEG format, so we don't need to do any conversion on them. We're only going to convert these Targa ones, so let's start with these ones here. I won't load the entire texture setup just so it doesn't flood my screen with a lot of bitmaps. And again, for memory reasons, because I've got View running in the background, and it's a real memory hog, I don't want to put too much strain on the PC, particularly with OBS running over here in the background. Now, if you're in Photoshop, depending on what version of Photoshop you're using, there are a couple of ways you can do a JPEG export. You can either do it through, your export command here and do a save for web, which is their legacy. Or you can just do a save as, and I'll probably just end up doing this save as because it's quicker and easier. there's a few versions of JPEG here too. You want the very top one if you're doing an export from Photoshop. I'm going to keep the name exactly the same. Just waiting here for it to pop up its dialogue. As far as quality goes, I'm on 12, which is the maximum. I really don't want to knock that back. I don't want to lose too much information. Ideally, you would stick to Targa. You wouldn't do a conversion here to JPEG because Targa is lossless. It's always a better format to work with natively. But unfortunately, like I said, because I put this model online for sale, I don't want the file size to blow out for people that have to download it. And I also want the lightest memory footprint for them as well. And a Targa file, say this will be around 11 megabytes, say for this texture, and once we convert it to JPEG, it'll take it down to about 2 meg. So you're going to be saving a lot of memory and a lot of file size by doing a conversion. But if you're not sending the file online for people to download or that type of thing, stick to your target texture. Or if you're running short of memory, then convert it to a JPEG. So if you're putting it online for people to download, or you're running short of memory on a computer, then do a conversion to JPEG. If you don't have either of those problems, then just leave your texture as Targa. You'll notice my machine really is slow. That's nothing to do with anything except for this view program. It's a real resource hog. And I'm also just going to close down my textures here after I've converted each one so I don't get confused. Again, I could set up an action for this, but I'll do it manually. Just as simple in the long run. Again, leave the file name exactly the same. That'll help us when we have to swap them out when we get into view. So don't go changing your file name at all, if you are doing this conversion. And what I'll do is, once I've before I start changing the textures out, we'll compare our memory usage. At the moment I can see that I'm using around about 11 gigabytes of memory. I'll wait till I close Photoshop down though so we can judge that correctly, and then we'll compare the memory after I've done the swapped out the textures to JPEG to see how much we gain, and I'll let you guys know what sort of saving we made by converting the textures, just to give you an example as to what I mean. Gives you a bit of a chance to see the texture map anyway while I'm doing this. Not that you can tell much from it. This is the way Mari paints up its textures. But I want to spend as little time as I possibly have to in Vue version 9. Pardon me. Again, because it's a really old and really buggy piece of software. They've improved it a lot with the later versions, so you won't have nearly as many problems with using the 2015 version. And again, I think the Windows update did something to the file saving and loading times in 3D programs. It seems to have taken take a lot longer now than it used to. Ideally what I do is close Vue down in the background while I do this, but trust me, I know from loading that file in, you don't want to be waiting for me to load it up again. So even though it's slightly slowing down my Photoshop here, I'm not going to close Vue down because it'll take longer to load it back up again. This version 9, of course, of Vue. As far as other software goes, like Vue, I don't really know of many. I think World Machine is probably the only other one that comes to mind that does what Vue does, as far as full-on 3D rendered environments or vegetation, grass, that type of thing. There is not really any other software around that I'm aware of that that does what Vue does. Which is a shame. It's always good to have some competition. Okay. So let's start grabbing a few more here now. I don't want these height maps. I put them in the wrong spot here. They should go into a null folder. That's for when we do when we take the model into Unreal. We're not using any height maps. In Vue anyway. And I'm not converting my normal maps. So we're not using occlusion in Vue either. Again, that's for Unreal. When we take the model into Unreal. So I've just got to be on the ball here while I do my selection, so I don't select any normal maps, height maps, or occlusion maps. We'll grab those ones. Now again, the normal maps have been saved out at the same texture resolution as the diffuse bitmap. And some of those textures are 4K, and a 4K normal map is probably a bit overkill. I'll leave them as 4K for Vue, and when I sell the model I'll stay as 4K. But when we bring the model into Unreal, I'm going to knock them back to half of that, to about 2K. You don't need a 4K normal map in Unreal usually for a texture. Because we're doing rendering though, beauty rendering, 4K will be 8K for us. And because we're reducing our file size here by swapping out our textures from target to JPEG, we're saving memory there anyway, so we should be good. You see how sluggish Photoshop has become because of Vue running in the background though. Get used to having things run at a certain speed, and when it doesn't, it really starts to irritate me. You know, it's like when I swapped from a hard drive to an SSD drive, that speed difference was quite dramatic, and then going back to using a machine that only has a hard drive and no SSD drive is just painful. It's funny how quickly you can get used to the speed improvement and then take it for granted. And again, this is when you create a mode, not a texture map in Mari, it creates this I don't know what you call streaking here in the texture, and that's just what Mari does naturally. In case you have in case your UVs go slightly outside of where it's painted, it keeps that color. It just helps to stop any seams from showing up in your model, and that's just something Mari does when it saves out its texture map. This is a flower bud, if anyone's wondering what that texture might be. They're those closed buds that are on the ivy. Remember too guys, if you have any work you want me to look at, feel free to pop into chat. If you're not a regular though, remember to ask before you post a link, otherwise Nightbot will time you out. But I'm always happy to look at the work that you guys are doing, so feel free. But just don't post a link straight off the bat, ask me first in chat. And that can be any work, you don't have to be a great 3D artist. I'm happy to look at anything and everything that you guys are working on. Because like I said, that's the reason I'm on Twitch, is to interact with you guys. So. And to see what you're working on and to try and encourage you guys to get into doing 3D. I'm so tempted to close view down in the background. I just know it'll take too long to open it up again though.
I'm taking it all in, baby. It's breathtaking looking at you. You give me something to think on, baby. There's nothing better than being with you.
And like I said though, the version of that is open in the background is version 9, and that's like 6 versions ago, so it's not really fair to judge the program on the one that we're going to be using to create the materials, because they have improved it quite a lot in the later versions. It's not as crash prone, it is a bit easier on system resources. Maybe doing some, oh no, it's the bottom piece I think. I was going to say we may be converting some that we're not using, but I don't think we are. I got Max to do a resource collection with these textures, so it really should have only pulled in textures that the models are actually using, not any of our temporary textures. Where are we up to here now? Come on. We're up to here. They're all okay. That one, that one, that one. No, we don't want the height map. We don't want the normal, we don't want the occlusion. We don't want the height, don't want the normal, don't want the occlusion. We're about halfway there, I think. With a bit of luck, we'll get all of our textures set up in View 9, and we won't have to use the program again after today. Because once the model's exported from View version 9, we won't be opening 9 up again, we'll be going straight to 2015. Have to remember too, some of these textures I'm loading in are 4K textures, so they're quite big. And again, that's another reason we're doing the conversion to JPEG to reduce that file size. The decorations that are on the center of those main columns under the rotunda. Again though, that detail is actually modeled into the mesh as well, so we're using detailed mesh with a color texture on top of it. You see now why I was tempted to use SAP to do all this for me. There's the lower terrace tiles down that we have at the bottom of the model. That's what this texture is. And again, I'm pretty sure that's actually a 4K texture from memory. Gives you guys a bit of a chance to listen to the music in the background instead of hearing me droning on endlessly, like I normally do. These are the stairs at the very front of the model, those dark stone stairs. And like I said, we did create some height maps and some occlusion maps as well as the normal maps. We're only going to use the normals in view, but the height and the occlusion will come in handy when we take the model into Unreal and we start setting materials up in Unreal for it. Because the height map you can use to do parallax mapping in Unreal, and the occlusion map you can use to overlay on top of the diffuse texture, just to give the model piece a little bit more oomph, a bit more depth. In a real-time engine, it can help just to pull up the texture a bit, the diffuse texture a bit. I won't be using the occlusion in view though, because it doesn't really need it. It's a full-on rendering program, so you're best not using your occlusion maps in view if you're doing, or anything really, like even V-Ray. If you're using a proper rendering engine, not a real-time rendering engine, that is. I won't say proper, that's the wrong word. But for Unreal, it can really help. Did I not do this one, or did I do this one? I can't remember now. I thought I did this one. I think I did. I'll just double check here. I don't think I did. Photoshop should complain if there was a file already with that name. So we have 2 versions of this texture, so I think this is the second version. Because remember, we created 2. They're those borders that run along the front of the model. We created 2 different textures so that we could vary them up, and people wouldn't notice that that we were reusing textures. Any of the streaking you're seeing here, that's part of the model that it's probably either at the back or at the base, which is not being seen. So that's the reason I didn't really worry about correcting any of the streaking that you're seeing on parts of the UV up here. It's probably butted up against the ground. This is one of the columns against the tiles on the ground, so you're never going to see it. But again, if you're inclined, you can certainly paint those over in Mari if you're using, or whatever painting program you're using as well. In my opinion, it's a bit of a waste of time, like I said, because it's not going to be seen. You're going to be painting something that's going to be hidden. An option for optimization for a game model would be to remove the polygon that UV part of the texture is using. It'll just reduce your polygon count a little bit for a game model, particularly, like I said, if it's butting up against those tiles. You can remove it without it being seen and no one will know. But for the sake of a square that's maybe 2 tries, I wouldn't bother. Again, you're not going to be saving a lot of memory by doing that. So, but that's a trick that a lot of guys that do game models will do. They'll remove the inner polygons that aren't seen. It used to be, like I said, much more of an issue in the past when you had really limited resources to work with, like consoles that only had, what was the Xbox, 256 memory or 512? I can't remember. It was an issue then, but it's not so much of an issue now that you've got consoles that have 8 gigabytes of memory. So. But again, if you're inclined, that is an option, and that is what we used to do to save memory, is to remove polygons that were hidden. When you're doing rendering work, you don't worry about it because polygon counts really aren't a concern, period, generally. Okay, where are we up to here? And like I was saying last week, I am looking forward to jumping back into Unreal. It's been a little while since I've used the engine because I've been so busy doing other stuff. I did update the program last week to the new version. I think version 4.15 is due to drop any time. So hopefully that'll drop before we jump into using Unreal. Just looking through here to make sure, find out where I'm up to. Looks like I'm up to here. Again, I'm going to grab a few, not all of them. Probably take it up to this JPEG texture here, the small deco. We're nearly there though. So yeah, I think I'll hopefully the 4.15 Unreal update will drop before we jump into Unreal. See what they've changed. So I always keep an eye on Epic's website and read the release notes for the new versions to see what they've added and changed and fixed. And they're always adding new stuff to the program, so they're a busy bunch over at Epic Games. And again, the Unreal Engine is free to download and use. If you do want to release a commercial game from it, though, using it, I think they take a percentage of the sales, but they do give you, you are allowed to earn a certain amount before they start requiring you to pay them 5% of your sales, so it's not a bad deal. Considering the time, effort and money that goes into developing these game engines, it's pretty good of Epic to do that. Because I remember when I first started in games development years ago, working for studios that used Unreal, you used to have to buy the engine outright, and it was millions of dollars to get a license to buy it. So them giving it away for free is certainly a good thing, and just taking a percentage of the sales. I'm so tempted to close view down in the background, I really am. We're nearly there. I'll refrain, I'll restrain myself, I won't do it. And the reason I opened it up in the background before the stream was because I knew how long it takes and I didn't want you guys waiting around, but it seems to have just made everything else crawl, so I don't know if it was such a good idea after all. These are those large columns, I think, at the front of the garden terrace, and we created, I think, 4 different versions of them. And again, even though I'm doing this conversion to JPEG, I'm doing it for specific reasons, and I would always say to you, stick to using your lossless format like Targa or PNG or TIFF if you can, because it'll be better in the long run. Only do this conversion to JPEG if you have to. Not JPEG. That's the one I want. Not JPEG stereo, just normal JPEG.
I'm sick of